Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the University of Worcester Study Skills podcast. I'm Kate Courage from Library Services, and from Library I am joined by
Sykes.
And from the Centre for Academic English and Skills I'm joined by
Christina Wright.
Kieron Dann.
And Ruth Edge.
And today's topic is what makes a perfect paragraph. So I think we're going to pass over to our colleagues from the Centre for Academic English and Skills. What would you say is the most important thing to bear in mind when constructing a paragraph?
Well, if we ask what is a paragraph, a paragraph is a series of related sentences around a central topic, a central theme. And then what makes the most effective, the perfect paragraph?
Well, for me, I think that absolutely I agree. It's one central theme. So one paragraph, one point, and a group of sentences that are all related to that one point and not going off down other in other sort of rabbit holes in other areas.
And that one point will be presented within the topic sentence, which will usually be the first sentence, not always, but usually the first sentence. And following that will be a series of supporting sentences, examples of the point, evidence to suggest something may be true or otherwise, to discuss it, and some sort of linking. We need to have good cohesion within the paragraph to make all of the points connected, joined together logically and cohesively.
Can I ask what a topic sentence is?
A topic sentence is really, you want to make something as clear as possible. So you're opening up this theme, and you are making it absolutely clear. You don't want to be giving reasons, for example, within the topic sentence, because that's going to follow. So, for example, a very clear topic sentence would be one particular issue affecting climate change currently is the topic of pollution. Full stop. So you've introduced that topic, and you're going to explain it much further and give examples, evidence to this being a particular problem, etc.
So evidence can be from sources, different sources.
Yeah.
So introduce the topic, evidence from sources, and then usually what you just require some kind of explanation as to how your evidence supports the overall topic of the paragraph, the overall topic of the essay. So explain why that evidence is important. Okay, explain your reasoning for using that evidence. I think as well.
I think it's important when we're talking about evidence that you're trying to use evidence from different sources. So don't take all your evidence from just one book or one article. We want you to show that you've read widely and that you can pull evidence from different sources to construct an argument around that point. That's
really important because we want synthesis of points in our work. We talk about one point within a paragraph, but that certainly doesn't mean it's just going to be backed up by one source. It needs to be backed up by several, and sometimes they might be contrasting. So there may be one point that disagrees with another point, but within that, your voice is important because you are connecting all of these different ideas together. You're interpreting what so-and-so says and how that is contrasted by somebody else. And you're also stating what the relevance of that is. What's the interpretation? What does it mean, ultimately?
I think it's important you said give different viewpoints, because when you're evaluating the evidence within the paragraph, you need to show that you've considered different arguments, and you're producing a counter argument, and that will give your thesis, that will give your argument strength.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think with the evidence as well, in most disciplines at university, we want students to paraphrase the evidence that you find from your sources. So to use direct quotations carefully and maybe not at all, very important to paraphrase. And the importance of that is to show that you've really understood the original source. If you can paraphrase into your own words, it's showing that you can actually put it into the context, can put it into your own words, and provide that it's relevant to the point that you're making and to the explanation that you're going to go on to connect.
So we're saying that a good paragraph then is a point, should have an overall point. It should include evidence. It should include some explanation, some evaluation of that evidence, saying what, and it should also show the relevance of why your paragraph is relevant to the overall topic of the essay, how that evidence is relevant to the paragraph topic, and it should also be clear how that paragraph fits into the overall essay question. Okay. And what about linking paragraph together? What we call cohesion across paragraphs and cohesion within a paragraph. Would you say that cohesion is crucial to an effective paragraph?
Absolutely. So within the paragraph, cohesion will generally be achieved by the use of good connecting words. However, nevertheless, consequently, these type of linking words. But yes, certainly the paragraphs really need to be cohesively connected together. Now, you might do that by the end of a paragraph connecting it to the next paragraph. So this particular topic of conversation leads us to the next one, whatever the next one will be, and that leads to the next paragraph. It's possible also to open up the paragraph with a connecting point to the previous paragraph as well. So another relevant fact is...
I know some tutors, words like however, therefore, furthermore, very, very useful connecting words to connect sentences within a paragraph. Be careful of using those words across paragraphs though, because they're not ideal. Using however, furthermore, isn't ideal at the start of a new paragraph, because the idea is that it should refer to the sentence immediately prior to that sentence, and that's something to consider.
I suppose also a lot of students will be familiar with model paragraphs such as models such as Peel. So paragraph, point, evidence, example, link. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But what you've got to be wary of is just keeping to that rigid structure every time. If you followed that in every paragraph, your work would be very repetitive. So what we're looking for in higher education is a lot of variation in the way that you produce that. What you've really got to bear in mind is that every paragraph must have a good, clear topic sentence, which introduces the point you're trying to make. And following that, supporting sentences. And the way that you present the support it can vary. As I said, try to avoid repetition. That's really important.
So I guess that the kind of support that you use might depend on the kind of what you found in your reading and how you understood that. So some paragraphs might be longer than other paragraphs, depending on how much evidence there was for a particular point.
That's interesting, actually, about the length. Because I think if every paragraph had the same length, then your writing would become quite mechanical.
Yes.
So I mean, you read articles saying, from academic writing textbooks saying that a paragraph ideally is 5 or 6 sentences, but you shouldn't be constricted by that. I don't know what we generally say. It should be more than a single sentence, but I don't know. You might read in journals, paragraphs that are just a single sentence, but we usually say make sure your paragraph is long enough so that the point is developed. And if it's too short, you won't have developed sufficiently the point that you're making. So make sure in each paragraph that you have developed that point by giving evidence and explaining the importance of that evidence.
Yeah, making sure your own voice is clear. That must be difficult, doesn't it, in a single sentence to bring in evidence from other people, but also make it clear where you stand on that particular topic.
That would be very unusual, I think. And also, 5 or 6 sentences, that sounds like it's going to be a very short paragraph. But not necessarily, because that really depends on your length of sentence. You'd be writing complex sentences, for example, which may go on for 2 or 3 lines. So a paragraph which only has 5 or 6 sentences can actually be relatively long.
Yeah, I think it's a good mix of different lengths of sentences makes a good paragraph, and also to make sure that you are using the grammar within those sentences correctly so that your ideas are coming through very clearly. And I think some students get into problems if they're trying to create sentences that are too complex, and they can get too long and they can lose the sense of the sentence. So using some shorter sentences, some longer, more complex sentences is a good idea. But at the end of the day, it's got to be easy to understand. So it's got to be quite a coherent paragraph with a nice flow from one sentence to the next.
And I think that point of making it really clear which bits are your ideas,
Yes.
which bits are not, is really key there, isn't it, as well? So making sure that that's very clear in the paragraph, where your own voice is, which bits are your conclusions.
How can, I just wondered, it might be worth thinking about some ways in which we could indicate that this is our voice, that we don't need to put a citation here because this is our voice, this is the point we're making in this paragraph. I mean, something like when we've given some evidence, we could say this evidence, or this is significant because, or this demonstrates that, blah blah blah.
This suggests
that. Or on balance, the evidence.
The way the way you're interpreting the evidence, particularly, you are evaluating it. That's quite important. A lot of essays are going to be asking students. A lot of the essays will be persuasive. They want persuasive writing. So yes, you need to give a direction of a particular point, and you're using some sources to sort of back that up, and you would be using those sorts of devices. So this suggests that blah blah blah, and that's sort of following your train of thought that you're trying to achieve.
So your own voice, what we call criticality, it could be the topic sentence, could be the first sentence in the paragraph, it could be the concluding sentence, or it could be both. But it should be clear that that's your own voice, and that's why you haven't got a citation there.
Yeah.
The Manchester Academic Phrase Bank is quite good for giving you ideas of the type of language you can use to introduce your own voice.
Yeah, very good source.
You can also show your own voice, can't you, by bringing 2 sources together into the same sentence. So you bring 2 ideas together, but you express them in your way, in your sentence. You put both in the in-text citation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it is genuinely 2 different ideas that you can bring together, that creates quite a strong argument.
Yeah. And also the way if you contrast in ideas as well. We talked about different viewpoints, showing that your breadth of reading, but that's your own voice commission, showing that you can contrast 2 different viewpoints as well from sources.
And going back to the point of clarity and how important that is. Use language that you are familiar with. Yes, you want to be using academic vocabulary. You want to be using a range of sentences and lengths, but don't get into the realm of trying to impress. Don't start to use words that you really are not familiar with and try to form sentences in ways that you're actually not comfortable with. So writing, you've got to make sure that it's absolutely clear. Think of your tutor. Your tutor's reading lots and lots of essays. They don't want to come across a paragraph that they've got to read again 2 or 3 times to try to identify exactly what you're trying to say. So that's really, really important.
And remember that if you've been asked to use PEAL, point evidence, example link, or point example evidence link, it's in both. That's just a framework. You shouldn't feel caged by it. It is only a framework as well, I think, because your writing can become quite mechanical if you use the same sort of structure, I think, on every paragraph.
As you go through the year groups as well, then you would be expected to write with more variation. So perhaps in your first year of studies, then the sort of appeal paragraphing that you might be familiar with would be fine. But you get into the second, third year, your tutors would want to see more variation of that sort of structure. So yes.
That was Christina Wright, Kieron Dann and Ruth Edge from the Centre for Academic English and Skills, and Kate Courage and Ros Sykes from Library Services, in conversation about what makes the perfect paragraph. Thank you for listening.